Hey guys, welcome back. I've been gone for quite a bit, but it's just basically because vacation, New York, to be honest. But let me begin with overall what has been going on throughout this whole week. So when it comes down to it, I've gotten into two good trades. I didn't necessarily trade in New York. There wasn't any way for me to actually do an analysis. Didn't take my computer, didn't take anything at all. And honestly, just wanted a sort of not necessarily a break, but just wanted to enjoy myself out there. Not gonna lie, I love trading. Trading is one of the best things ever to exist. At the same time, there's always that realization that you gotta understand that there's a whole life that we gotta live besides trading. But trading is everything. So remember that. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna go over AUD USD, which is basically I took a trade. I'm pretty sure I took my stop loss. Not necessarily concerned about that because it was a 31 pip stop loss. Not necessarily that big, but at the same time, not necessarily something that would cause my account to go in the negatives that much. Okay, so let's begin. So when it comes down to this analysis, we look at the monthly. Simple information. We look at the monthly, giving us a little bit of a deeper understanding of what's going on with this market. We see the market go bearish, breakaway, retest on the support resistance zones, and it's within that level where it can potentially maintain a downward trend. So now what we're seeing is this market, in a sense, having a channel being created. Now, when we do draw trend lines, I was talking to Juan about this. Basically, trend lines are just something that you can refer to, not necessarily something that you should take as accurate. So, for example, if a trend line, in a sense, compared to this one, is very accurate because it hits on certain points almost to the exact extent. But there's often times where a market won't necessarily retest that trend line to the exact point. It will more than likely retest on a support or resistance zone, which is generally a few pips below that or a few pips above that. So you just got to be aware of that and not necessarily take everything as 100% perfection when it comes down to the markets because it's not, and it's not necessarily going to do that at all. So first things first, we do see the channel being created. Market has respected this, and it has, in a sense, found a lot of resistance support within this general area where we found a lot of support right here. So the market is finding a lot of consolidation within that general area. So now let's look at the 4 hour. So in the 4 hour, it's basic information. There's a looking at this right now, I can see potential setup as for a potential sell, even when it came up to here. So simple information market found this bullish trend line once, twice, three times, and boom, right here at this point, it found support and resistance. This became to consolidate. We see wicks on the upside. Now, when it comes down to wicks, what do we say? Wicks identify the direction of the market based on where the exhaustion is. So if there's exhaustion on the top side, we see wicks on the upside. So necessarily seeing on this, we see a lot of buyers exhaustion going on. So this is a potential sell when it comes down to AUD USD. Looking at the 1 hour, we can definitely see markets starting to consolidate a whole lot more. We can even draw a trend line within this general area. We can consolidate within this zone and market break away from this trend line and push below that. Now, for us to get into entry at this point, we can definitely see a potential re-entry breaking away from this support and resistance zone. More than often, this sort of setup, it's already been fulfilled based on this information. This would have been a great entry. This would have been a very, in a sense, you would have a lot of confirmations, break away from trend line, break away support and resistance, and the fact that it has been on a higher time frame, breaking away from that specific trend line. So what we're seeing right now is what we're expecting is the market to maintain a downward trend all the way up to potentially this zone right here. So you could potentially enter this trade at this point right now, but there's not necessarily a retest. So that would also leave you a lot of room for you to mistakenly lose 20 to something pips. So this is based on this information. Not saying that it's going to be 100% accurate, but this is mostly based on reference and based on analysis. So what we're seeing right now is a potential for the market to maintain a downward trend. So we can see right here is basically market is starting to slow down within this point. What we do definitely want to see is the market break away from this. If you want to get into a comfortable trade, break away from this and retest and maintain a downward trend. But that's for AUD USD. And your target, of course, would be on a 4 hour chart would be with below these levels around this general area, which would give you a potential TP of about 100 pips. Yeah, from within this area. So next setup that we have. So AUD, I mean EU, it failed when I was out there in New York. It was a very simple trade to take. I did not expect it to move that drastically at all, but of course, I do not look at news. I never thought it as relevant unless it's something drastic like the market is collapsing or something like that. But if it's just regular news and things are going on in the economy, it's not necessarily vital for me personally to look at it. And I just base my trades on analysis, which is based on technical, not fundamental. Remember that technical and fundamental are two different things. Fundamental analysis is based on news. Technical is based on analysis that you do by marking up charts. If you guys want to know an interesting fact, technical analysis did not exist until I believe after 1990 or something like that. I'm not sure exactly. But before that, it was just all fundamental and news. So let's begin with this analysis. I am already seeing a really good setup going on right here. So when it comes down to this specific trade setup, we have on a 4 hour. Let's look at the monthly, just because I want to reemphasize. Always look at the monthly. So monthly, we see this information. We do see potential for the market maintain a bullish trend. Other than that, market has maintained a direction that it has for the last several weeks, which is basically consolidating within this general area. Of course, going bearish, but it's finding a lot of resistance upon the support. So we look at the monthly. Now let's look at the daily. So when we look at the daily, we see a market also creating a sense of channel. Like I said, when I emphasize when it comes down to trend lines, do not take them as exact, take them as a reference because they're not always going to hit exactly where it is. When it comes down to trend lines, you take them as you go because of the fact that a lot of people want to say, well, you have to connect your trend line with the body. No, it just depends on how the market is. I tend to do it to the body or to the wick, depending on how I see the market. Anytime a smaller time frame would also make it a body, just to make that clear. Okay, so now we see this market break away from this bearish trend line, hit once, twice, 3 times, consolidate, break away, and retest exactly at that point. Another great confirmation would be the support that we find at this level. So now that we see this information, and we see that the market has created a new higher low, we could potentially see the market maintain a bullish direction. So what does that mean? Is that we could potentially see the market hit a TP above that trend line that we have set up. So let's look at the 4 hour to give us a little bit more of a reference where the TP could potentially be. So my TP general area would be right around here. Why? Because there's a lot of resistance within this general area consolidation. That means it's a very strong unity as far as it's showing us that it could potentially not break away from it or might consolidate. So if you do want to take a setup like this, as far as this is concerned, oh, that was a short. I'm not trying to short it. I'm trying to long it. Yeah. As far as this is concerned, your potential TP can maintain all the way up here, and your stop loss would of course be within below this general area. Just give it enough room to move. I'm not saying this is 100% accurate. I'm just saying based on my analysis and how I trade, this is how my setup would be. And of course, this is not a 2-to-1 ratio or 3-to-1 ratio. It's more of a 4-to-1 ratio, if I'm being honest. When it comes down to this specific trade setup, your TP could also be a little bit lower than that, just to be safe within this general area. But of course, my projection for this is up here. I am in a sense a swing trader, but at the same time, I do take smaller trades. So that's EU so far. UCAD. UCAD I haven't been trading since I hit my TP over here. Just because UCAD is very volatile. You don't have to trade UCAD all the time. So of course, we see this information monthly. We see the market have a bullish trend line directly respected multiple times. It has not pushed above this resistance. So that's very good information for us, meaning that there's a potential for the market to maintain a downward trend. So now when we look at this information right here, we see the market, in a sense, consolidate, break away, retest, and it's within that general area where it's actually giving us a bit of information, not enough that I would like to see, but something to at least give us an idea what could potentially happen. So right here, what we're seeing is a giant gap. If you guys know anything about trading, and if you guys keep an eye on it, or if you guys learn anything about it, is that gaps usually tend to be filled. What that means is that if you see this giant gap, the market tends to go back into it and fulfill it and go back to its original place until it starts doing a movement again. So we're looking at the 4 hour. We could potentially see a bullish trend line being respected right here, almost to an extent, once, twice, and break away and retest support and resistance zone and push back up. But what we're not looking at, we're looking at what the market's going to do right now. So right here, based on this information alone, I do not have a setup for it. If I'm being completely honest, why? Because I do see this giant gap. I do not want to have a setup when it comes down to this because the market could go either way. Of course, I do see this bullish trend line, and the market is maintaining that breakaway and retest within the zone. And of course, we could potentially see the market push below that. But what I want to see to make sure that this is a sell is I want to see the market break away from this general area. That's my important. If I could emphasize that, is that I want the market to break away from that just because of the fact that I need it in order for it to confirm what direction it's going to have. I'm not going to rush into a trade. Remember this. I do trade 4 pairs, 1 crypto, and 1 indice. But at the same time, I don't trade them all at the same time because of the fact that I do not need to. There's nothing in this world that says that you need to trade everything all the time. Just be patient, be calm, do not rush into it, and do not say that you want to make money quick and fast. There's a numbers game in a sense. The people who want it quick and easy are not going to get it. I can guarantee you that. If you're patient about it, you'll get to where you got to be. Okay, now let's look at UJ. UJ with that TP on 269, it was fulfilled because of my spread. Overall, it was a good trade for me. I honestly just was patient with it. I did not get out of it. I got into it exactly where the market started turning over, and it was a simple as trade. I'm not gonna say anything about it being easy. It was just simple to analyze. That was my projection for it. Nothing too complicated, nothing too easy. But since that's over with, we delete that because we're trying to see what the market's going to do potentially right now. So we're looking at the monthly. We see the market break away from this bearish trend line. We test on these levels. And from that point forward, on a daily, we see the market retest on the trend line again, break away from it, retest, and it's within that consolidation zone where it hasn't pushed above that support and resistance zone. So from that point forward, we're looking at the 4 hours. So 4 hour giving us the perspective of what potentially could happen is that we do see this bullish trend line. Trend lines are very simple to analyze, just basically market direction. Overall market direction is bullish. It's finding a lot of resistance within this general area. Right now, I don't see a setup. What I do expect is UJ to break away from this retest and then maintain a downward trend up to potentially within this general area. But right now, I do not have an exact setup that I want to take. And that's okay because it is Monday. We do see wicks on the upside, meaning that there's potential for the market to have buyer's exhaustion, which is good for us. Potentially sellers that are going to get into this market. And you can see your TP potentially being below this, above this zone. So just be patient with it. Don't rush it. There's no need to rush it. And like I said, with gaps, they usually tend to be filled. So watch this information right here. Market had a gap and filled right up. Now look at the wicks, look at the information. Do not settle for just analyzing quickly. Take your time. It's patience. And I like doing these videos more now because of the fact that I can take my time with them. And I don't have to necessarily wait for people to. The reason, if I'm being honest with you guys, the reason I stopped doing Zoom calls is because of the lack of interaction, if I'm being completely honest. It doesn't make a difference between me doing this and doing a Zoom call. The only difference is that there was a lack of interaction. I need questions. I need people to ask. When I was learning, bro, I would ask. I did not care if the question sounded stupid. I don't care if it sounded repetitive. I would ask. So that's one of the reasons why I stopped doing Zoom calls. I'm going to continue doing Zoom calls after October ends, basically just to emphasize that the course is going to be out. But at the same time, I just want to emphasize on the fact that you guys need to ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. This is basically what I'm gonna do for right now. I'll do Zoom calls one-on-ones. I don't have a problem. I already have some set up with some of y'all, but at the same time, just emphasizing on the fact that you guys need to ask questions because I can't just be out here talking and not having questions asked because that makes me feel like I'm not getting through to you guys as far as what potentially I can help you guys with, or if anything, or if I sparked anything as far as what you could potentially learn. So that's UJ. Let's move on from that rant. Ripple. I've been with Ripple for a while, not necessarily been doing much with it. It's been in profits, but it has been consolidating. Now, this is good information because once it breaks away from this, it's almost like a guarantee that it's going to shoot up or shoot down. So based on this information alone, I'm not going to go into emphasis because I do not look at the monthly, primarily not even on daily. But let's just look at the daily just to give us a very clear picture of what potentially happened. So looking at the daily, we see this information. Market has, in a sense, breaking away from this bearish trend line. We tested it's within that consolidation zone. It's finding a lot of resistance and support within this general area. It's within this channel, in a sense, if you want to call it that, based on this information that it has not broken away from this. But we start to see the market create new higher highs compared to these lows that it has. So based on this information alone, we could potentially see the market maintain an upward trend. So looking at this on a 1 hour, you see a lot more detail based on this. The fact is that the market has been consolidating. We see wicks on the downside, wicks on the upside. But the very clear thing that I do see based on this information is that the market has not pushed below this level. And we do see a trend line being respected, almost a trend line within this general area, but market is not broken below this. So that's very good information for us as far as potential buyers that want to get into this trade again. So for you to get into this trade, I would honestly, just wait for it to break away from this general area on an upside. If it breaks away from the downside, I would be hesitant just because the market has found a lot of support within this general area. But if it breaks away on the upside in a retest or just breaks away in a solid candle, then that's your potential target as a TP. And your target as far as this trade setup, based on this information alone, you can put it all the way up to here. And the reason that is because of the fact that there's previous support resistance within this general area. Now, if you do see that and you do analyze it this way and you do see that potential setup, and understand one thing about cryptocurrencies, you do not have to have a high TP in order to get into this trade. So that's basically Ripple. Now let's look at US30. So US30, we're looking at the monthly. I haven't been trading US30 basically since I left. So US30 market has not pushed above this point. Not much information other than that. On a daily, based on this information alone, we see the market find a lot of resistance at this zone, which is very good overall if you want to get into a setup as a sell. Looking at this information potentially can give us a direction of what the market is going to do. And the one thing that I don't like is this gap. This gap right there. Market has opened. If you guys don't know anything about trading US30, you can trade it after 5. Just to emphasize on that, you cannot trade it after 5. There's some brokers that offer that opportunity, I believe, but after 5, I think the market's closed, and you have to wait until tomorrow morning, I believe 6 or 7, somewhere around that time. But looking at the 4 hour, we see simple information, and 1 hour markets within that consolidation. So if I'm being completely honest, not much as far as direction. I could potentially see it going down if I'm being completely honest, but I do need it to break away from this zone. I need that in order to give me direction, but I do expect this gap to be filled up eventually. Expect a little bit more consolidation, but other than that, market potentially can maintain a downward trade on US30. I will send more updates on that as the time goes by, but overall, I hope you guys had a great week. This has been a very reflective vacation just because of the fact that I was in Wall Street and I did walk over there. That's been one of my biggest goals since I was like younger, was to just go to Wall Street and take a picture with the bull and just look there. I used to want to work there, but that has not been my goal recently because of the fact that my goals have aligned differently. I want to create something that's my own. I wanted to do something that's basically reflective of my character. So this is basically why Pip Culture came about. So I hope you guys have a great day, great weekend, great week. And I hope you guys keep continuing learning, pursuing your goals. Like I said, I don't need to do this, but I love seeing people grow and I love seeing the growth that you have. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many people I have in Pip Culture. What matters is how many people become successful because of it and become successful because of their own sheer will. So have a great day, and I'll see you guys probably tomorrow. Just a few more setups I'll have.